drive a 9-year-old Civic with a crack in the passenger seat that I fixed with duct tape the color of my mood that winter, gray. I paid for it myself, registered it myself, insured it myself. Nobody helped me with that. But somehow, when my brother needed 4 new tires in February, my mother assumed I'd cover it. And I did. That's the part I'm still unpacking. I'm the oldest of 3. My brother Evan is 2 years younger than me, married, 2 kids, works in logistics in Mississauga. My sister Paige is the youngest. She's 26, still at home, still figuring things out, which is fine. Except my parents have never once pressured her the way they pressured me. I've been working since I was 15, first at a coffee shop on Dundas, then part-time admin at a dental clinic while I finished my degree, then full-time as a billing coordinator at a medical group downtown. I'm 31 now. I have my own apartment in Hamilton, 45 minutes from where I grew up. I don't say any of this to sound impressive. I say it because you need to understand the context. You need to understand the version of me that walked into Carmelina's Italian kitchen on a Saturday evening in March, thinking, maybe this time it'll be fine. Maybe this dinner will just be a dinner. It wasn't. My parents had booked a table for my dad's 65th birthday. Big deal, right? Milestone. My mom had made a reservation for 8 people. Her, my dad, Evan, his wife Jess, their 2 boys, Paige, and me. She'd been talking about this dinner for 6 weeks, sent a family group chat message about it with 3 different cake emojis. I bought my dad a birthday card, a bottle of scotch he'd mentioned once in passing, and cleared my Saturday entirely. I drove up from Hamilton in the rain. Carmelina's is the kind of place where the menus have no photos and the pasta is house-made and the server introduces herself by name and asks if you have any dietary restrictions before you've even sat down fully. It's not outrageous if you're splitting things evenly, but it's not the Mandarin either. Mains are between $38 and $60. The pasta they're known for, a slow-cooked short rib ragu with fresh pappardelle, is $54. I looked at the menu and felt that specific kind of anxiety I'd trained myself to ignore over the years. The kind where you do quiet math in your head while pretending to read the specials. Evan and Jess were already there when I arrived. Their boys, who are 5 and 7, were sitting between them, coloring on the paper placemats the restaurant puts out for kids. Paige was on her phone. My dad was at the head of the table, looking relaxed in the way he only does at restaurants. Like, someone else handling things takes 10 years off him. My mom hugged me and said, "You look tired." I said, "Hi, Mom." She said, "Did you eat before you came?" I hadn't, but I smiled and said I was fine. The server came. Her name was Danielle. She had a good energy. The kind of person who makes a table feel like a gathering instead of just an appointment. She went around and took drink orders. My mom ordered sparkling water for the table. My dad got a scotch, neat. Evan got a beer. Jess got white wine. I asked for a glass of the house red. Then Danielle looked at the boys and asked if they'd like to order a kid's drink or something from the little kids section of the menu. My mother said, cheerfully, without hesitation, "Oh, they'll just sharefully, without hesitation. Oh, they'll just share something with the adults. We'll order for them." Danielle smiled and moved on. That was the first moment. Small, easy to miss. But I noticed it because I know my family. When Danielle came back for food orders, Evan and Jess went first. They both ordered the short rib ragu, $54 each. My mom ordered the branzino. My dad got the veal. Paige got a pasta that was $42. My mom ordered it for her actually, which is a whole other thing. Then Jess leaned over to her boys and said, "What do you 2 want, sweethearts?" And my mother cut in and said, with that voice she uses when she thinks she's being practical, "They can eat something at home. Let's not make the bill complicated." The 5-year-old looked up from his placemat. He had a blue crayon in his hand. He said, "But I'm hungry now." My mother said, "Grandma will make you something when we get back." And she patted his hand like that was the end of it. Jess pressed her lips together. Evan looked at his beer. Neither of them said anything. I looked at my menu. I looked at the kids section. Grilled cheese, mac and cheese, pasta with butter, $12 to $15 each. I said, "Mom, the kids' meals are $12. I think the boys should order." My mom said, "We're not making the bill complicated. It's fine." My dad said, "We're not making the bill complicated. It's fine." My dad said, "Let it go. They'll be fine." And just like that, 2 hungry children sat at a $65 a head dinner table with nothing to eat. I ordered the arancini to start and the mushroom risotto for my main, which was the second cheapest thing on the menu. Then I quietly flagged Danielle and said, just to her, "Can I add 2 kids' pasta butters to my order? Just put them on separately." She nodded. Of course. I didn't announce it, I didn't make a thing of it. The boys got their pasta, they ate. Numpy can think of it. The boys got their pasta, they ate. Nobody said thank you. Here's the part that took something out of me. About 15 minutes before Danielle came back with the bill, Jess asked if she could get her leftover ragu boxed up. Danielle brought a container. Jess packed up probably a third of her plate, a substantial portion of that $54 short rib ragu, and set it on the seat beside her bag. I watched her do it. She was going to take it home. That's fine. People take leftovers home. That's normal. Except then Evan said, almost as an aside to Jess, "Can you grab the boys' pasta too? For tomorrow?" And Jess reached across and started to pack up the untouched kids' pasta butter that the boys had barely touched, the pasta I had ordered and paid for on a separate line, into another container, without asking me, without looking at me. She just picked it up and started boxing it like it was part of the table. I didn't say anything. I sat with that. Then the bill came. Danielle set it in the middle of the table, the way servers do when they're too diplomatic to hand it to one specific person. It sat there for a moment. My dad poured himself the last of the scotch. My mum straightened her napkin. Then she looked at me. Not at Evan. Not at Paige. At me. She said, "You've got this, right? It's Dad's birthday." The bill was $382 before tip. I had covered dinners before. Christmas Eve at Milestones 2 years ago, I paid. My parents' anniversary dinner at a Greek place in Burlington, I paid. Evan's promotion dinner, which nobody ever called my promotion dinner when I got mine, I paid. There was a pattern, and I had never named it out loud because naming it felt like being ungrateful. And I had spent 31 years not wanting to be ungrateful. But I sat there and I thought about the 2 boys eating $12 pasta that I ordered, that nobody thanked me for. I thought about just putting leftovers in a container. I thought about my mom saying, "Don't make the bill complicated" when it came to feeding children, and then handing me $382 without blinking. I thought about Evan's tires. I thought about the $220 I'd sent Paige last September when she said she was short on her portion of a bachelorette trip deposit. I thought about the $600 I gave my parents 2 summers ago just to help with the property tax when the numbers came in higher than they expected. None of those times did anyone say, "You've got this, right?" They just received. I put my card on the table. But I only put it partway. I said, "I'll cover mine and the kids' pasta." My mum blinked. "Sorry," I said, "my risotto, my wine, my arancini, and the 2 kids' pastas I ordered. That's my portion. I'll cover that." The table went very quiet. My dad said, "It's my birthday, Margot." I said, "Happy birthday, Dad. I love you. I got you scotch." I nodded at the bag by his chair. My portion of this dinner is on me. The rest, I think, should be split between everyone else. My mother looked at Evan. Evan looked at Heaven. Jess. Vivian looked at his beer. Jess looked at her boxed leftovers. Paige said, very quietly, "I don't really have," and trailed off. I said, "Paige, I can help you with your portion. I just can't keep doing everyone's portion." My mom said, "This is embarrassing. This is your father's birthday." I said, "I know. I'm not trying to make it hard. I'm just being honest about what I can keep doing." My dad didn't say anything. He looked out the window toward King Street. The rain had stopped. The lights from the restaurants across the road were reflecting on the wet pavement. He looked older than 65 in that moment, and softer, maybe. Danielle came back. I handed her my card and told her I'd be paying for specific items. She didn't miss a beat. She split the bill without making us feel like a spectacle. Evan ended up covering the rest, which was the first time in my memory that he had paid for a dinner in this family. He didn't say anything while he did it. His jaw was set in that way he has, but he paid. I hugged my dad at the door. He held on a beat longer than usual. He said, "Drive safe." That was all. But the way he said it felt like something else was in there too. My mum didn't hug me. She said, "I'll talk to you later," which in her language means she's not done. I drove home in the kind of quiet that doesn't feel like silence, it feels like aftermath. She called me 2 days later. She said I had made my father feel small on his birthday. She said the family doesn't nickel and dime each other. She said I had always been the responsible one, and that this was a surprise. The way she said it, like responsibility, meant I had signed some contract she drafted without me. I let her finish. Then I said, "Mom, I've paid for I don't know how many dinners. And I ordered food for the boys because nobody else was going to, and nobody said thank you, and Jess boxed it up to take home. I'm not angry. I'm just not doing that anymore." She said, "Jess didn't know you paid for that." I said, "I know." She said, "You should have said something." I said, "I know. I'm saying something now." She went quiet. Then she said, "This isn't like you." I said, "Maybe it's exactly like me. Maybe you just haven't seen this part." A week later, Paige texted me. She said, "Hey, so Evan said you're not doing the cottage share this summer. Is that true? Because I was counting on that to work out my portion." I stared at that text for a long time. I hadn't said anything about the cottage. Evan had said it for me and he was right. But also, he had said it to manage himself, not to help me. And now Paige was texting me to say she'd been counting on me, which is a very specific kind of pressure, wrapped in a very innocent-sounding sentence. I wrote back, "I haven't confirmed anything yet, but I've been thinking about whether I can take on a big shared expense this year. I'll let you know." She said, "Okay, no worries," and then a few hours later, "Actually, can I ask, did something happen at Dad's dinner? Evan won't really say." I sat with that for a while too. Then I said, "Nothing dramatic. I just paid my portion instead of everyone's." She said, "Right. Yeah. And then I get it, honestly. You always end up covering everything." That was the thing about Paige. She saw it. She had always seen it. She just hadn't known what to do with what she saw. I didn't go to the cottage that summer. My parents rented the same place they'd rented for 12 years, up near Perry Sound, the one with the dock that needs replacing and the barbecue that never heats evenly. Evan and Jess went. Paige went. My parents went. I booked a long weekend at a small inn in Prince Edward County with a friend from work. We drank local wine and ate cheese and walked along the water, and I did not think about the bill once. My dad texted me a photo of the dock on the second day. Just the photo, no caption. The lake in the background, the old wooden boards, the particular shade of green the trees get in August. I sent back a heart. 2 weeks after I got back from the county, he called me. Not my mum. Him. That almost never happens. He usually lets her do the calling and does the talking when she hands the phone over. He said, "How was your trip?" I said it was good. I said the wine was better than I expected. He laughed a little. Then he said, "Your mother's still upset." I said, "I know." He said, "She'll come around." I didn't say anything. He said, "For what it's worth, I should have said something at the table. About the boys. Your mum was wrong about that." He paused. I was wrong about that. I had not expected that. I truly had not expected that. I said, "Thanks, Dad." He said, "I'm not saying everything else." Which was his way of saying, "I'm giving you this one thing, don't ask for more." And that was okay. I've learned to take what's offered and not demand what isn't ready yet, he said. Happy belated birthday to you too, by the way. My birthday had been 2 weeks before his. He'd sent me a card, late, but he'd sent it. "I know your mum and I didn't do much for it this year." I said it's okay. He said it's okay. He said it's not, but we'll do better. We talked for another 10 minutes about nothing. His garden, my drive into work, whether the Jays had any chance this season. Normal. Easy. The kind of conversation I had been aching for without knowing how to ask for it. I've been thinking about that dinner a lot since then. Not with anger anymore. Anger was the first layer, and under it was grief. Grieving the version of my family I had kept trying to make true by paying for it, as if covering every bill would eventually add up to feeling included. As if subsidizing the holidays and the dinners and the tires would earn me a seat at the table that fit. It doesn't work that way. I know that now. I'm still close with Paige. We get coffee when I come up to the city, just the two of us, and she pays half every time now without me suggesting it. She mentioned once that she noticed, growing up, that things were different for me than for her and Evan. She didn't elaborate. I didn't push. But it mattered that she said it. Evan and I are polite. We'll probably always be polite. There's a version of this story where we work it out slowly, over years, without ever having the full conversation. I can live with that. My mom came around by November. She didn't apologize exactly. That's not her way. But she called to tell me about a recipe she'd made and ended up on the phone with me for an hour. And at some point she said, "I do know you've always done a lot for this family." And that was as close as I was going to get. I said, "Thank you, Mom." I meant it. I still have the crack in my passenger seat. I keep meaning to get it properly fixed, but honestly, the duct tape has held, and maybe that's its own kind of lesson. I don't need my family to be different people. I just need to stop paying for a dynamic that cost me more than money. That's the part no one tells you when you're the responsible one, the capable one, the one everyone assumes has it handled. That having it handled doesn't mean you're not still waiting at the table, hoping someone notices you're hungry too. I noticed. That was enough to start. I used to think that being the reliable one was a kind of love. That if I kept showing up, kept covering the bill, kept saying yes when I meant no, it would eventually become something reciprocal. It didn't. What it became was an expectation. Quiet, assumed, never spoken out loud, because the moment you name a pattern, the people benefiting from it have to decide whether to feel ashamed or defensive. My family mostly chose defensive. What happened at Carmelina's wasn't a rupture. It was a result. Every time I'd handed over my card without being asked, every time I transferred money without receiving so much as a follow-up thank you, every time I'd absorbed the cost of someone else's comfort while managing my own quietly, that was all building towards something, not dramatically, just steadily, the way water finds the lowest point. The dinner was just the night I stopped letting it drain downhill through me. I think about the boys a lot. Evan's kids sitting there with their crayons while the adults ordered whatever they wanted. Nobody deciding they deserved a meal. And I think about the fact that I noticed, and I did something about it, and nobody thanked me. And then Jess boxed up what was left. There's something clarifying about that sequence. It told me everything I needed to know about how invisible my choices had become to the people I was making them for. What I've come to understand. Slowly, the way you understand things that cost you something to learn is that the capacity to take care of people doesn't obligate you to be taken for granted. Those are two different things, and I spent a long time confusing them. Being capable isn't a contract. Having more doesn't mean owing more, especially when the people expecting more have never once asked whether giving it costs you anything. There's a kind of clarity that only comes from sitting very still with discomfort and deciding not to perform your way out of it. I could have paid the bill. I'd done it 100 times. I could have smiled and absorbed the $382 and driven home and told myself it was fine. That would have been the easier choice. But easy and honest aren't always the same thing. And I'm at an age where I'm more interested in honest. My dad called me on his own. He said he was wrong. That was small, and it was enough. Not because it fixed everything, but because it was real. And real, even when it's small, is something you can actually build on. Something you can actually build on. I still have the duct tape on my car seat. I still drive up to see my family. I still love them, with the specific complicated love you have for people who shaped you in ways you're still sorting out. But I pay my portion now, and I order food for anyone at the table who hasn't been fed. That I've decided is mine to give. The rest was never really mine to carry.